Say hello to the Hyundai Elantra, which has been completely redesigned this year and truly is a car of 2021. You have a grille that takes up basically the entire front end of the car, somewhat fake tailpipes, and a swooping profile that's both more aerodynamic and gives this car a cooler look. This particular Hyundai Elantra is the SEL trim level, which is the mid-tier trim level, but importantly, this has both the convenience package and the premium package. The premium package, which you can only get if you also get the convenience package, gives you 17-inch alloy wheels, a power sunroof, 60/40 folding rear seats, power adjustable driver's seat, and an upgraded Bose audio system, among other things. To make the Elantra stand out against the plethora of other compact sedans on the market, Hyundai is taking cues from luxury brands in designing this vehicle. For example, you get Elantra spelled out along the back as if this was a Lincoln. And that theme of luxury intent continues in the interior, where there is styling cues from various luxury brands. For instance, the infotainment system and the gauge cluster are very reminiscent of Mercedes. Now, in a Mercedes, the infotainment and the gauge cluster would be connected via a single pane of glass, looking very elegant and very clean. In the Hyundai, they're connected by one, maybe two pieces of piano black plastic. So obviously this is a $25,000 car. You're gonna make cost savings somewhere, and that's to be expected. But the feeling you get from the instrument cluster and the infotainment system being connected is the same you would get on a Mercedes. It's very premium and purposeful feeling. The digital instrument cluster in front of you is an option on the part of the convenience package you can get on the SEL trim level, which is why I would really recommend the convenience package. You get this digital instrument cluster, which is very good looking. It's very crisp, very clear. It doesn't display your speed digitally. I wish it did that. I love that. It's very clear, very simple, but the analog style digital gauges that they give you are they're good enough. I mean, but it would be nice if there was a digital readout of the speed. I always love that in cars. Another design cue are the three horizontal metallic plastic lines that run across the dash. These are very reminiscent of Audi, who loves to have these seemingly continuous air vent strips across the dash, and this Hyundai Elantra has taken that design element into its own cabin, and it looks very premium as it does in the Audi. So that combination gives this car a very premium luxury feel. It does, upon first look, feel like a luxury car. Obviously, the materials are not going to be as good as in a luxury car. There's lots of hard plastics. The seats are cloth. You can get leather seats in the limited trim level. But this is a $25,000 car, and the cars I'm talking about here in design-wise are like $80,000. So it's very impressive that the Elantra has been able to take the design elements from much more expensive vehicles and kind of make it their own. Even though there are interior styling cues taken from Mercedes and Audi, Hyundai did not forget to make the interior easy to use. There are physical climate controls, which are always a welcome relief in 2021, wherein a lot of automakers are going with screens to control the climate controls, or using the main infotainment screen to control the climate controls, which is even worse because then when you're in apps like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, they cannot be full screen. But in this Elantra, since there are physical climate controls, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto can be full screen, which is very nice. This is the standard 8-inch infotainment screen, and it is very easy to use. It's crisp and clear, bright, everything you would want in a screen, and very responsive too. If you get the limited trim, you get an upgraded 10.25-inch screen, which removes all these physical controls on the side of the screen that you see in this 8-inch screen, but they move those physical controls down directly above the climate control. So even if you get the bigger screen, you don't miss the practicality that you get with the physical buttons to make shortcuts and the volume knob and tuning knob, which is very nice to see. You have a 4-spoke design steering wheel, which is rather unique, and it looks very good. You have these aluminum looking buttons, they're plastic, that's fine. You have these piano black buttons, which will get dirty, but they look really nice now. The only problem is the center console armrest is rather far back in this car. So when you put your hands on the steering wheel and you want to rest your elbows on the armrest, you have to grip the steering wheel rather low down, but these bottom spokes kind of get in the way of doing that. So I would have liked either the center console armrest to be moved up further, or a more traditional 3-spoke design would have allowed me to grip the steering wheel and have my elbows on the armrest. In the back of the Elantra, there is plenty of knee room. I am 6'1", and this is my preferred driving position, so there's a lot of space for your knees. Foot room is kind of tight with the seat all the way down, like I prefer it, and headroom is tight. The sloping roofline does sacrifice on rear headroom, and when I sit up straight, my head is pushing up against the ceiling. But if I, slouch down a little bit and is in a more actually comfortable position, I do have enough space. For a short Uber drive, this should be fine. All right, moving on to the driving dynamics of the Hyundai Elantra. Guys, this is a $25,000 economy car, so you're not gonna expect sports car handling and really smooth ride. It's gonna lean in the corners, you're gonna feel the bumps, but that's to be expected. But actually, for an economy car, this actually has a rather good ride. It's compliant over bumps. It knows what it's doing. Nothing's too jarring that enters the cabin, and that's a really good thing for an economy car. A lot of these cheaper cars can really be harsh over bumps, and there's nothing harsh about the Hyundai Elantra. And the same is true about the acceleration. Harsh is not the word you would use to describe the acceleration of the Hyundai Elantra, but no one is expecting it to be. 147 horsepower that powers most Hyundai Elantras is actually an adequate amount of power. You don't feel like you're missing power in this car. It might sound like a very small figure, but this is a small car. And 147 horsepower moves this car, gets you to highway speed, and even can, give you a decent amount of acceleration. All of that is combined with the fact that this engine doesn't scream too much. It has a CVT, so sometimes with CVTs, it'll just jump right to 5,000, 6,000 RPMs, and it will really just rattle throughout the cabin. That isn't true with this engine. A lot of times it stays below 3,500, around 3,000 RPMs, even when you're giving it a kind of significant amount of throttle input, but it still manages to move the car well. There's kind of a low-end torque to this engine, so it doesn't have to rev out, and that's very nice. But even when you do floor it, the sound that comes into the cabin isn't a terrible one. I've definitely experienced far worse sounding 4-cylinders. So that is a pleasant, almost surprise to this car, right? You have this smaller engine and the CVT, but you don't really have any of the negative consequences that traditionally come with a smaller engine and a CVT. Another thing that is very nice about driving the Hyundai Elantra are all of the lane keep and safety features that come with this car. You have this really good lane centering system that will steer for you and keep you centered in your lane. It doesn't bounce you between lanes. It keeps you relatively centered in your lane, which is very nice. A quick sidebar on that, the lane centering system doesn't turn off with the cruise control. So sometimes after, say, you've gotten off of a highway and you're driving through a neighborhood, the car will try to tug you back into a lane that sometimes doesn't exist. Now, this is easily defeatable by the push of a button, but more than a few times I found the Elantra trying to steer itself when I didn't want it to. Just something to note. Now back to the driving. And you have a great adaptive cruise control system that will take you to a complete stop, which is not necessarily common amongst adaptive cruise control systems. So it will take you to a complete stop. You do have to engage with the system to get it restarted from a stop. You have to either press on the accelerator or touch the toggle the cruise control button, but then it will pick back up and it will resume following the car in front of you. And it keeps a good distance. You can change that distance between the car. It keeps a good distance, but it is a very good and competent system. Also, one thing that is good about the system that other systems really struggle with is, say you're in front of a very slow moving car and then you change lanes to pass them. This system in the Hyundai Elantra will really pick up your speed fast to return back to the speed that you want your cruise control, that you set your cruise control to. Other systems can be one, slow to react, and then 2, slow to accelerate. This system is both fast to react and fast to accelerate back up to your speed, which just makes it much easier to use the system in general. So that's the Hyundai Elantra. If I had to describe this car in one word, it would be crisp. You have crisp screens, styling, cruise control even has that crisp nature as it responds to your environment. And it's a very competent vehicle. The Hyundai Elantra makes the most of being an economy car. Economy car normally does the minimum that is required of it. The Hyundai Elantra does not. The Hyundai Elantra, it attempts to make you feel like you're in a much more premium car, and it successfully attempts that, to make you feel like you're in a much more premium, much more luxurious car, while still being very affordable. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.